Imagine trying to design a blueprint for a house. Now, imagine that same house needs to comfortably shelter over 1 billion people. People with countless different languages, diverse beliefs, and deep, complex histories. Well, that's exactly what we're looking at today. Welcome to this explainer, where we're going to unpack the world's most comprehensive constitutional text, the Constitution of India. Oh, and quick fun fact before we start, the original text wasn't actually typed. The whole thing was entirely handwritten and beautifully calligraphied. It's this fascinating, incredibly intricate structure, and we are going to walk through its halls together.
Okay, let's dive into this. How do you actually frame the supreme law for such an incredibly diverse population? You don't just need a basic set of rules. You need a visionary framework, something that holds an entire subcontinent together, all while strictly guaranteeing individual freedoms. The sheer scale of this challenge is honestly mind-boggling, and the resulting document is nothing short of an administrative and philosophical marvel.
To make sense of this massive text, our explainer is organized into a 6-part blueprint: Birth of the Republic, the preamble and structure, your fundamental rights, duties and state directives, the machinery of governance, and finally, a living document. Let's get right to it.
Section 1. Birth of the Republic. Framing the Supreme Law. So, the foundation was officially poured back in 1946 when the Constituent Assembly was framed under the Cabinet Mission Plan, and this required some of the most brilliant minds of the era working at an incredible pace. Guided by the President of the Assembly, Rajendra Prasad, and the brilliant head of the Drafting Committee, B.R. Ambedkar, the text was officially adopted on November 26, 1949. And then, just a few short months later, on January 26, 1950, it came into full force, officially making India a republic.
Section 2. The Preamble and Structure, the Foundation of the Republic. 448. That is the massive number of articles in this supreme law. To put the breathtaking scale of this document into perspective, it's organized into 25 parts, contains those 448 articles, and includes 12 schedules. Literally, it leaves absolutely no stone unturned when it comes to organizing the state.
Right at the philosophical core of this blueprint is the preamble. It boldly declares India a sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic. But look closely at what it actually ensures. You see, justice isn't just some broad legal term here. The text specifically demands social, economic, and political justice. And that sits right alongside liberty of thought, expression, and belief, as well as equality and fraternity. It's just a profoundly powerful statement of intent. Structurally speaking, the Constitution establishes a federal system, but it's got some really strong unitary features designed to keep the whole nation unified. First up, Articles 5 through 11 grant a single citizenship, meaning you're a citizen of India, not just of a specific state. Second, and this is huge, Article 326 guarantees universal adult franchise. Every adult gets a vote. That was a radical, incredibly progressive structural choice for its time, prioritizing giving power directly back to the people.
Section 3. Your fundamental rights. Covered in Part 3, Articles 12 through 35.
If the government framework is the architecture, well, these 6 core categories of fundamental rights, they're essentially the living spaces. They cover everything from equality and freedom to strict protections against exploitation, plus guarantees for religious, cultural, and educational freedom. But perhaps the absolute most vital one is that last one, the right to constitutional remedies under Article 32. This powerful article actually allows citizens to move the Supreme Court directly for the enforcement of these rights. It's basically the ultimate safeguard.
Let's punch in on some highly relatable human elements of these rights. The right to freedom, which spans Articles 19 to 22, includes protections regarding free speech, movement, and critical safeguards in criminal laws. But at the very heart of the whole shebang is Article 21, the fundamental right to life, and its essential companion, Article 21A, which guarantees the right to education. So free education is actually treated as a fundamental component of life itself.
So the really crucial point here is how actively these specific articles work to guarantee equality and protect vulnerable groups. Articles 14 through 18 don't just, promise equality, they actively abolish untouchability and titles. Articles 23 and 24 explicitly ban human trafficking and child labor. And Articles 25 through 30 ensure people can manage their own religion while specifically protecting minority groups. It's a fiercely protective, active framework.
Section 4. Duties and State Directives. Guidelines and Responsibilities.
A healthy nation is always a balance of rights and guidelines. On one side, we've got Part 3, the fundamental rights, which, as we just discussed, are legally enforceable. But on the other side, we have Part 4, the directive principles of state policy, covering Articles 36 to 51.
Now, these are non-justiciable, meaning you can't actually sue the government over them, but they serve as absolutely vital guidelines. They direct the state to promote welfare, reduce inequality, ensure equal pay, organize village panchayats, and even foster international peace. Think of them as the moral compass of the state.
But building a nation requires active participation from us, too. Outlined in Part IVA, specifically Article 51A, are the fundamental duties. Sure, this means respecting the Constitution and national symbols, but it goes way further. It explicitly mandates protecting the environment, promoting social harmony, and safeguarding public property. It's a great reminder that a republic is, at its core, a shared responsibility.
Section 5. The machinery of governance. How the government operates.
All right, we've seen the foundation and the living spaces. Now let's check out the plumbing and the electricity. Let's see how this all builds a functional, day-to-day state. The Constitution establishes a parliamentary form of government. The Council of Ministers and Parliament are clearly mapped out in Articles 74, 75, and 79 through 85. But running right alongside this legislative engine is an entirely independent judiciary. The Supreme Court and High Courts, covered under Articles 124 to 147 and 214 to 231, hold the essential power of judicial review. And this ensures that the legislative and executive branches always operate strictly within the bounds of the law.
Now, to keep everything running without a hitch, the Constitution sets up some vital independent institutions. Article 324 establishes the Election Commission to guarantee free and fair elections. Article 280 creates the Finance Commission for revenue distribution. And Article 148 sets up the Comptroller and Auditor General to ensure strict financial accountability. These institutions are the guardrails, keeping the democracy functioning fairly for everyday citizens. It also carefully manages official languages in Articles 343 to 351 and accounts for distinct regional nuances with special state provisions, like the historically significant former Article 370.
But what happens when the house catches fire? Well, the framers accounted for crises by including emergency powers. Article 352 allows for a national emergency. Article 356 permits president's rule if a state's constitutional machinery completely breaks down, and Article 360 allows for a financial emergency. Obviously, these are very severe mechanisms, but they were carefully designed to protect the integrity and the security of the nation during extreme crises.
Section 6. A living, dynamic document, adapting to the future.
You know, no building can survive forever without a few renovations. And this brilliantly illustrates the foresight of the framers. Article 368 details the amendment procedure, and it actually uses a highly calculated mix of flexibility and rigidity. Some parts of the Constitution can be amended pretty simply and flexibly, which allows the law to naturally evolve with society. But other, core structural parts, they require a very rigid process, including ratification by the states. That ensures the fundamental soul of the Constitution can't just be altered on a whim.
We can actually see this renovation process in action through some key historical amendments. The famous 42nd Amendment added the words socialist and secular to the preamble and introduced those fundamental duties we discussed earlier. Then, shortly after, the 44th Amendment was passed specifically to safeguard citizens' rights and restore the balance of power. These major historical updates prove that the text actively reflects changing societal values over time. To sum it all up, the Constitution truly remains a living, dynamic document. It is an absolute masterclass in balance. It seamlessly weaves together the enforceable rights of the individual, the active duties of the citizen, the strict mechanics of everyday governance, and the ultimate goal of the welfare of the people. It's really just a symphony of civic architecture.
Which leaves us with this final thought. We've seen how brilliantly the framers built this system back in 1950 and how it has evolved through amendments to survive and thrive ever since. But as the world changes faster than ever before, how will this living document adapt to the next century of democracy? It's a fascinating question to ponder. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep learning, keep questioning, and I will catch you in the next one.